It is the 31st day of July 2025. I'm down here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I'm admiring a beautiful big monument here called the Monument to the Forefathers. It's very big. It's 81 feet high. Weighs about 180 tons. I see a car over there in comparison. It's monstrous. It's the biggest granite monument in the United States. I see a tour bus now coming in. Not many people know about this, so I'm surprised to see a tour bus here. It was designed by a fellow called Hammond Billings. It was eventually, after many decades, completed back in the 1890s. And the purpose of this is to give a guidance to future generations. How, if you follow what is inscribed and depicted and implied in this monument, you'll actually come to where you wish to be, which is exercising liberty. And then the final little thing there to the right is peace. I'll zoom in on the liberty. That is Liberty Man there. Where you want to end up, of course, is a peaceful society. Right there. PEACE. Now this monument is made up of a large sculpting at the top and 4 other sculptings around the base. It was supposed to be a lot bigger than this, so the top structure was built to the design it was designed to be built, but the bottom half of the structure was only built at half size because it was too expensive to do it in complete size. But nonetheless, it'll tell you the story of why those pilgrims came out here. They came out here to exercise their religious liberty, to glorify God and worship as they wished, and that was not available to them over in England or Europe, so they came across in the Mayflower. What is depicted in the top sculpting, top statue there is faith, F-A-I-T-H. The word faith there is at the bottom of the statue, right there, faith. She is depicted as a lady with a star on her forehead, representing wisdom. Now the structure up on the top is actually an eagle's nest. Some happy eagle has a nest made up there. Anyway, she's pointing up to heaven, as you can see there, with her finger, because her faith comes from God. That's what is depicted there. This person does not have any eyes because you don't need your eyes to give you faith. Faith comes from the inside. And she's holding a copy of the Geneva Bible right there in under her left arm. The Geneva Bible, obviously that's from Switzerland. That is the John Calvin Bible. That is the Bible that these pilgrims adhere to. And if anything is not in the Bible, that is not part of their religion. They strictly observed what was in that Bible and what was in that Bible only. Now, the other 4 figures, we start here with this figure, this lady. Her name is Morality. You can see Morality written down there. Now, there's people working on this sculpting, cleaning it up. It was in bad need of cleansing. Anyway, Morality does not have any eyes either because your morality comes from the inside as well. That little thing around her neck is referred to as a tabernacle. It was worn by ancient Israelis in the Old Testament, etc. She represents morality, and she is reading the moral code, and the 2 little sculptings on either side. Each and every one of those 4 big sculptings have a little sculpting on the side. This one here on this side says prophet. That means the prophets will be inspired by God, etc., and they will set out the moral code. And on the other side, once they have that code, their duty then is to evangelize or spread the news. So the smallest statue there, I will zoom in on the smallest statue, evangelist. His job is to spread the word, evangelize. And that is one of the statues. So, one of the foundations of a just, moral, lawful, peaceful society is morality. That is the first foundation. But that's not enough. We go on to the next one here, which represents law. Now, this fellow, he is sitting in judgment. His eyes most certainly are open because he's got to see what's just and what is not just. He has a copy of the Ten Commandments under his left arm that represents basically all the law you need, in their opinion. Now, this fellow is a very stern guy, and he will dish out punishment, but you also see his right hand is forward with his palm outstretched like that. That represents mercy, because you have to be just, but also you have to be merciful. Now, this too has two little sculptings to either side. The one on this side is justice. And there you will see an image of a lady with the scales of justice. And needless to say, the scales of justice are evenly balanced. Everybody is equal in the eyes of the law. And on the other side, let's go on around to the other side. The other side, of course, will refer to what I just mentioned a moment ago, mercy. Okay, here we go. Mercy right there, that is the figure representing mercy. And sometimes you've got to be cruel, but also sometimes you've got to be kind. Now, that is the second foundation of a just and peaceful society. Then number 3, of course, is education. This lady here represents education, without which a society cannot function, without being an educated society. She, of course, is reading her Bible, because in the opinion of these pilgrims, these separatists, your education will be derived totally from the Bible. You understand the Bible, you understand everything. Now, how they would have educated in those days. Education was done in the home. So you'll see the youth at home, and it's getting its education from its mother. That is what's represented there. Now, when we go around the other side, you'll see some people working on this statue, so we'll just have to ignore those guys. They're doing a fantastic job, needless to say.
Well, I didn't recognize what you were saying. I bumped around, but I kind of. Yeah, I remember you doing that version.
Okay. Now, to get a complete education, of course, you've got to go to the older people, and they will give you the wisdom. And that is representing the older gentleman giving the wisdom to you. You cannot beat wisdom. Now, the final one is Liberty Man. That fellow there is a very stern looking man indeed. He has a sword, and he has broken chains, and he has the skin of a lion draped above and around his shoulder. What that represents is he has broken the chains of tyranny. He will have slain the lion, which would have been a symbol of tyranny in those days. And he is victorious, and he's sitting there in victory. Now, the little sculpting on this side here, that represents tyranny. And that represents the fact that tyranny is now prone, but it's still alive. It never goes away. So the victor must keep his foot firmly planted upon the chest of tyranny, because at any moment tyranny can just spring up and gain control again. So you've got to be constantly vigilant against tyranny. Now, I will not walk around to the other side because it's wired off here. But the other side is where we began with peace. Now, around those four sides as well, is there is sculptings and facades for them under education there. That represents the signing of the Mayflower Compact. So you can Google Mayflower Compact and see what was involved in the Mayflower Compact. But it was signed aboard the Mayflower ship. Compact is a legal term meaning an agreement, hence the name Mayflower Compact. Going down to the next one. This image here represents the peace treaty of friendship made between the Wampanoag Native Americans and the Pilgrims when they settled here in what became Plymouth, Massachusetts. That treaty lasted for over 50 years, but unfortunately then it ended and we saw a war called King Philip's War, which was the most bloody war per capita population in the North American history. That was in the year 1675 into 76 here in Massachusetts, and it continued another couple of years to the north of here, up into Maine, etc. Now this one here represents, it's called embarkation. Wow, they've taken away the little thing that says embarkation there, but anyway, that's what it was the last time I was down here. That represents the people leaving Holland, getting on the ship, going across the English Channel, where they will meet the Mayflower and some other people as well, and go across the Atlantic Ocean. And the people, of course, are crying out in anguish because they're going to be seeing those people never again in this world, and they're getting on the boat, and that's going to be their destiny, going across. That first winter of 102 passengers, they made it here to the New World. Exactly half of them died, which was 51. Now, the final one here, that represents the fact that when these pilgrims washed up to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the first thing they would have done was get out of their ship and go by boat onto the land. They will give a celebration to God for getting them across the Atlantic Ocean, which was a very perilous thing. So, that is the National Monument to the Forefathers, erected by a grateful people in remembrance their labour, sacrifice and suffering for the cause of civil and religious liberty. And thank you very much for watching this lengthy video.